Hey guys, John here with Backyard Maine. There's a lot of misinformation out there about electrical code requirements. So today I picked 6 electrical code myths that people should stop believing, and we're going to clear them up right now. Myth number 1, you cannot make a splice or a tap in your breaker panel. That has to be a code violation, right? Let's go to Article 312 of the NEC. Article 312AA states, the wiring space of enclosures for switches or overcurrent devices shall be permitted for conductors feeding through, spliced, or tapped where all of the following conditions are met. The total number of all the conductors installed at any cross-section of the wiring space does not exceed 40%. And the total area of all the conductors, splices, and taps installed at any cross-section of the wiring space does not exceed 75%. So, as long as we don't violate any of our fill requirements, splices and breaker panels are just fine. And myth number 2, we need to apply antioxidant paste to aluminum wires connecting to lugs in an electrical panel. Well, in the past, antioxidant paste was applied to aluminum wires to prevent oxidation. But back in the late 80s, Article 310.3b required that aluminum wire be made of AA-8000 series electrical grade aluminum alloy conductor material. This alloy does not require antioxidant paste, and since around 1987, it hasn't been required. Can we still use it? Yes, we can. It's just not required by code. And myth number 3, you cannot re-identify a white wire to be used as an ungrounded hot wire. The white wire can only be used as the grounded neutral conductor, right? So this must be a code violation. Nope, it's actually a common practice to re-identify a white wire to be used as a hot wire. Article 200.7c in the NEC lists the requirements for this practice. This is often used in situations like switch loops or in 240 volt circuits where the white wire is used as the hot conductor. The white wire must be permanently re-identified in any color other than white, gray, or green. It can be done using colored electrical tape, paint, or another suitable method, and it must completely encircle the wire. The wire must be re-identified at each termination and wherever the wire is visible and accessible. So yes, we can re-identify a white wire as a hot wire, and it will be code compliant. And myth number 4, it's a code violation to put more than one Romex or NM cable into a single box opening. Single gang nail-on non-metallic boxes will have a cable opening or a knockout, but no cable support or clamp. These are the boxes that are most commonly used in residential wiring. The cable support requirements for these boxes have been reduced from 12 inches down to 8 inches because the box does not clamp down on the cable. I made an entire video on Romex cable supports that I'll link at the end of this video. According to Article 314.17b2, multiple cable entries shall be permitted in a single cable knockout opening for these boxes. So yes, with these boxes, you can put more than one cable into a single box opening. Multi-gang boxes, light boxes, and old work boxes will have a cable clamp as part of the box. Many of these boxes will be limited to one cable per opening, but you'll have to refer to the manufacturer's instructions to be sure. Article 110.3b states, equipment that is listed, labeled, or both shall be installed and used in accordance with any instructions included in the listing or labeling. So for boxes with clamps, we need to look to the manufacturer. But for single gang non-metallic boxes, more than one cable per entry can be used. Have you guys noticed this desk that I've been using in my videos? It's an E7 Plus 4-leg standing desk by FlexiSpot, the sponsor of today's video. Let me tell you, when it comes to sponsored content, I'm very selective about who I work with. But of all the products I've worked with, this desk by FlexiSpot is my favorite so far. I've had it for several months now, and I use it all the time. It doubles as a workbench for me, and with the casters, it makes it very easy to move around. I like that it's heavy duty and it doesn't wobble when I'm working or when I'm recording. You can set up to 4 height presets, or you can manually move the desk up and down with the arrow keys. It's rated for 540 pounds of static weight with 440 pounds of lifting capacity, so strength is not going to be an issue. I've become a big fan of a standing desk, especially out here in the shop. And surprisingly, I find that I'm more comfortable standing and I'm more productive as well. FlexiSpot is having a big sale right now, so if you're interested in the E7 Plus 4-leg standing desk, click the link in the description and use my exclusive promo code to unlock even more savings. Oh, one more thing before we get back to the content. They also sent me their overhead garage storage rack to test out. It's rated for 600 pounds and it's already helping me declutter my garage. I'll link the FlexiMount garage storage rack in the description as well. Let's get back to the content. Myth number 5, the red insulated anti-short bushing must be installed at all type MC cable terminations. I thought they were required as well for many years because that's what I was taught as an apprentice. But here's the deal. Type AC cable, not MC, Type AC cable, or BX, is covered by Article 320 of the NEC. 320.40 states that an insulated anti-short bushing must be installed at all type AC cable terminations. And the termination fitting or connector must permit visual inspection of the anti-short bushing once the cable has been installed. But what about MC cable? Type MC cable is covered by Article 330 of the NEC and it requires a completely different fitting, and it does not require an anti-short bushing. 330.6 states that fittings used for type MC cable shall be listed and identified for such use. Why do the manufacturers supply anti-shorts with their cable if they're not required? NEMA Bulletin number 90, which was posted way back in 2002 and then reaffirmed again in 2014, states the following. I'm going to put it up on the screen and read it, but you can look it up yourself as well. There has been much confusion within the installation and inspection communities regarding the use of anti-short bushings for terminating MC cable. The confusion stems from the fact that some MC cable manufacturers include anti-short bushings with their cable. The inclusion of anti-short bushings with coils or reels of MC cable is based on historical practice relating to the requirements of Article 320.40 of the NEC, which mandates the use of anti-short bushings or its equivalent protection for type AC cable. Fittings used for MC cable are required to be listed as per Article 330 of the NEC. The design of these fittings are required to provide a smooth, rounded end stop so that the metal sheath of the cable will not pass through and the wires will not be damaged. So the fitting is actually designed to protect the wires. Using an anti-short with an MC cable fitting that's not listed for use with an anti-short may actually violate 110.3b of the NEC. So whether you use them or not, I guess, is up to you, but they're not required by code, they're not required by NEMA or the manufacturers. And myth number 6, it's okay to install 20 amp receptacles on a 15 amp circuit. The receptacle rating is larger than the circuit, so it's protected, right? Article 210.21b3 reads, "Where connected to a branch circuit supplying 2 or more receptacles or outlets, receptacle ratings shall conform to the values listed in Table 210.21b3. Table 210.21b3 shows us that we can in fact install 15 amp or 20 amp receptacles on a 20 amp circuit. But in that same table, we can see that on a 15 amp circuit, the receptacle rating can only be 15 amps. So no, by code, we cannot install a 20 amp receptacle on a 15 amp circuit. But what's the reasoning behind that? A 15 amp circuit breaker is designed to trip if current exceeds 15 amps to prevent overheating. A 20 amp receptacle on a 15 amp breaker could encourage the use of higher amperage devices, which could cause the breaker to trip frequently or even worse, not trip at all, causing a dangerous situation. If you're interested in learning more about the code, you may want to watch this video next, where I discuss 5 electrical code lies that DIYers should stop believing. Hey, I'd like to thank FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video. I'm John from Backyard, Maine. I'll see you on the next one.